Hello everyone, my name is Matthew Walker. As Deputy CEO Tech UK, I am delighted to welcome you all to Tech UK's 4th Annual Digital Ethics Summit. I am, though, a little sad that we are having to do the summit online this year. Talking to a laptop in the corner of my room isn't quite the same as being at our traditional venue of County Hall with its fine Christmassy views of Westminster and the Thames. And while video conferencing has kept us all going in 2020, I think it's also taught us a lot about what we really value from human interaction, about the value of small conversations, about the value of being able to observe and listen in, and the pleasure of seeing familiar faces and meeting new people. So I very much hope that this time next year, we'll be able to meet again in person to carry on this vital conversation. And 2020 has been certainly been a year when digital ethics really mattered. And I say that not only because digital ethics has been so relevant to so many of the biggest challenges that we faced this year, but also because it's been a year when serious questions have been asked about whether digital ethics is working, whether serious investigation and open discourse is making a difference and helping us to do the right thing. There will, I am sure, be many views and opinions on that over the next 2 days, but it's my firm belief that the work done on digital ethics over the last few years did make a difference in 2020. There was, for example, a well-informed, if somewhat messy, public debate about the ethical trade-offs involved in building contact tracing apps. That debate did have a real impact on how those apps were built and deployed, and the outcomes were maybe not perfect, but there was a full and quite technical public discussion about what was at stake. There have also been other instances where digital ethics research has revealed significant flaws in the application of AI. One of the most significant being the work that has revealed the tendency of very large data sets to entrench racial bias. And 2020 was the year when so many of us learned so much about why that matters. And there have been other unfortunate high-profile instances where, despite being driven by good intentions, it became clear that even the best algorithms can't always solve fundamental questions of fairness and trust. I speak, of course, of the awarding of exam grades that brought young people out on the streets with placards saying, well, you know what they said. The Prime Minister blamed a mutant algorithm, but the real issue was the problem the algorithm had originally been set. And as Roger Taylor concluded in his very full evidence to Parliament, there was no way of awarding grades to students for exams that they'd not been able to sit that would, at the end of the day, be widely accepted as fair. But 2020 has also given us a glimpse of the future and some of the very real problems that we must all own and find solutions for. Not least of these is the challenge to democracy of dis and misinformation and the future impact of synthetic media and deep fakes. As Nina Schick makes clear in her book on deepfakes, this is not just an issue that can be laid and left at tech store. Politicians and traditional media also have a fundamental role to play here. And of course, there are very live questions about the role of ethics in commercial organizations and what happens when ethics researchers and the companies that they work for can't agree. Some have suggested that perhaps too much digital ethics research is being done inside tech businesses. Would it be better, for example, for more of this to be done by independently funded external bodies that are better able to argue inconvenient truths? There is a reason why the very first Tech UK Digital Ethics Summit focused so much on the task of establishing what became the Ada Lovelace Institute and the Centre for Data Ethics and Innovation. All of these issues and more, I'm sure, will be the subject of discussion over our sessions over the next 2 days. But I wanted to come back to why I haven't given up on digital ethics. And it's not unrelated to the fact that this year I found myself reading quite a lot about soil. The books I was unable to put down this year were Wilding by Isabella Tree and English Pastoral by James Rebanks. Both landowners and farmers, they describe the separate journeys that they took in coming to understand how industrial agriculture had impacted their businesses and how modern farming techniques had transformed the land that their families had farmed for generations, denuding it of countless plants, birds, and animals. But what's most relevant to our discussion is how they came to realize how little they knew about soil. Now, if there's one thing you'd expect farmers to know about, it's soil. Yet these farmers admitted to knowing almost nothing about how it worked, how it was generated, or how it was sustained. When big ammonium nitrate factories were repurposed from producing munitions to fertilizers at the end of the Second World War, everyone focused on the miraculous beneficial impact on global food production and just how green the grass grew. But no one, it seems, really bothered to understand the deeper impact on the soil below. It was only in the late 60s that the flag was raised on pesticides such as DDT, and really only now, as we saw with the recent UN report, that the perilous state of the world's soils is properly understood. That's more than 70 years since the era of industrial agriculture began. In that time, as Rebanks makes clear, farmers and ecologists increasingly lived in different worlds, unable to properly debate and discuss the very thing that mattered to both of them, the soil. And that's why I'm convinced that ethics and business cannot work and advance in isolation of each other. If we want to be able to look back with satisfaction on today's miracles of technology, then we need to look with purpose for the unseen, the misunderstood, the unintended, and indeed the malintended. In this perilous age of global systemic problems like climate change, we need to get things right quickly. These debates will never be clean cut. They involve difficult trade-offs. They should be messy, not styled in corporate gloss, but they must be urgent. We don't have 70 years to understand the impact of these technologies. We have to do it in real time as best we can. And that's where I think we are in 2020. We have a global community of people working to understand the impact of technology and a growing set of institutions that can support the investigation we need. We have many governments and businesses with good intentions, but that don't always do the right thing, and others who are less well-intentioned that demand very, very close scrutiny indeed. And we're trying to work out what we can effectively codify into law and what must be accomplished through other, more flexible means. Most of all, we have to keep the dialogue going, however hard that can feel at times. So enough of me and my soil analogy. We've got a fascinating and important agenda ahead of us. This afternoon, we'll focus on what we can learn from 2020, assessing the role and effectiveness of the digital ethics debate this year. We'll shortly be hearing from Minister of State John Whittingdale on the government's plans for a national data strategy, followed by the UK Information Commissioner Liz Denham, who will examine what progress has been made in digital ethics for the last 12 months. We'll then have our first plenary panel exploring in more detail the lessons that we should take from 2020 before we split into a series of breakout sessions, diving deeper into fairness and equality, data privacy, governance and data sharing, and data quality. We'll then have a keynote from Natasha Crampton, Microsoft's first Chief Responsible AI Officer, before we round off day one with a panel discussion on democracy in the age of AI. But before we start, I wanted to take the opportunity to mention that Tech UK will again be raising funds for Crisis, the UK's national charity for homeless people, to help provide some warmth and comfort to people who need it most. This Christmas, the frontline team from Crisis will be supporting thousands of people who are homeless, helping them rebuild their lives. Tech UK has set up a Just Giving donation page and will be contributing a £1,000 donation. We'll include the link in the chat below, and if you feel you could contribute, please do. All contributions will make a difference. Finally, I'd like to thank our speakers and our sponsors, Microsoft, Visa, Clifford Chance, Sopra Steria, and PwC, and our partners for the ongoing support of the summit. Without them, this event really wouldn't be possible. I look forward to the discussions taking place in the next 2 days and working with you all in 2021.